numerous injuries sustained from a dog attack. Good evening and thank you for joining us. A traumatic incident on Wiley Street this week. A 6-year-old girl was mauled by a dog being walked down the street and sustained multiple injuries. Nev Van Pelt joins us in studio after speaking with the family earlier today. And Nev, what's the update on the situation?
Riley, Willow's parents called 911 after she was attacked by the dog on Tuesday. An ambulance brought her to hospital where she was then sedated to receive stitches, and the owner of the dog has yet to come forward. And just a warning to viewers, some of this audio may be disturbing.
The dog was shaking me around.
The dog was shaking you?
Yeah.
6-year-old Willow Royer and her friend were playing with chalk on the sidewalk of Wiley Street Tuesday when a black dog and its owner came walking down the street.
I guess Willow stopped her and asked if she could pet her dog and if it was friendly, and the dog just latched onto her face and just started shaking and trying to drag her down the street. And that's when the lady tried grabbing it off, and then it grabbed Willow's foot, and she pulled it off and started walking this way and just left her there.
Willow and her friend sprinted back to the house, and the neighbors immediately called Willow's parents.
Our daughter's friend's mother on the phone screaming and crying, saying, "Willow, Willow." So we just jumped up and ran outside and ran over there, and my son picked her up, and she had blood all over her shirt, and she was screaming and crying, and she was bleeding out of her face, and she said a dog grabbed her. No one should have to ever go through that, kid or adult. Like, it was very scary, like, hearing her scream, the way she was screaming, like, it sounded like she was being killed. Like, I was honestly terrified.
Video footage was provided from a neighbor's house, which shows the dog owner walking away, calmly scolding the dog and telling it that it's not going on another walk for a while. Royer says he's infuriated the owner left his daughter there without helping her, and he wants to see them held accountable.
I don't feel like she should probably go to jail, but she needs to realize that you can't just walk your dog. If your dog's going to bite people like that, it should be on a muzzle. It should be on a close leash, not on a big, long 20-foot retractable. And, if your dog attacks somebody, it's your responsibility as a dog's owner to stop and take care of the situation.
Willow had to be sedated to receive stitches and was in the hospital until about 3:30 Wednesday morning.
They couldn't stitch the back part properly, so it's like one big weird loopy stitch because there was a square piece of her scalp that was just dangling. And then in her front of her eye, the tooth went right between her eyeball and her eye socket, so she almost lost her eye.
Royer says he contacted the police, but says they told him it's not a criminal matter, so they need to go through the city bylaw office. Since then, he's been told a bylaw officer went to the hospital and is supposed to come by their house as well. Nev Van Pelt, TBT News.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford will be in Thunder Bay tomorrow. A few details have been released by the Premier's office, but media have been invited to a news conference tomorrow afternoon featuring Ford and Labour Minister David Piccini. TBT News has also learned that Ford will participate in a PC party fundraiser earlier in the day at a local golf course. We'll have the full story on Premier's visit on tomorrow's News Hour. A big collision on Dawson Road early this morning involving 2 vehicles. It happened just before 8 a.m. An SUV and a sedan were involved in the crash near the intersection of Hazelwood Drive. According to Thunder Bay Police, both drivers were assessed on scene and then taken to the hospital with minor injuries. The vehicles both ended up in the same ditch along Dawson Road, with the sedan sustaining most of the damage. There's no word yet on whether any charges are pending. After 8 days of the inquest into the 2017 death of Ruth Ann Keekwish, the jury has heard from her family and the deputy chief of her community. There has also been testimony from doctors and nurses involved in the remote communities. The 31-year-old woman passed away in Kingfisher Lake First Nation from health complications stemming from diabetes and a lack of insulin. She had visited the nursing station in her remote community multiple times in the days before she died. Dr. Usni Butt testified this morning. He's the doctor who interpreted her lab results and communicated prepared directions to the nursing staffs. Butt explained that remote northern communities tend to have unique medical issues, such as higher glucose levels, and nurses who do not have experience in these communities would not be aware of these issues. Inquest lawyer Kate Forget details the upcoming witnesses.
We anticipate Next week, we'll be hearing from experts. Tomorrow, actually, we'll be hearing from Dr. Marwaha, who's an internist who specializes in management and treatment of diabetes. So she will be providing her expert opinion to the jury. Next week, we'll be hearing from another expert who's a family physician who has experience providing health care in remote First Nations communities.
The final testimony is expected to be heard from Kingfisher Lake Chief Eddie Mamqua on Wednesday, with closing statements on Thursday. Thunder Bay Fire Rescue has a new deputy fire chief. Dave Tarini has been hired for the role and says he was excited and relieved when he got the news. He first started as a city firefighter in 2003 and moved up the ranks to fire captain and then acting deputy chief a few months ago. Tarini joins fellow Deputy Fire Chief Martin Heina and new Fire Chief Dave Paxson in the senior management roles. The Port of Thunder Bay is having an above-average shipping season this year. Port CEO Chris Heikkinen says the strong numbers for grain and other shipments are a good sign for the port.
We've not only made up some of the ground that we had maybe lost in the last couple of years in terms of the grain, but it's now actually trending over what we typically see on an average season. So it's great in that regard. And then the potash is really kind of the icing on the cake because it's really helping the numbers as well.
Potash shipments for July were over 200,000 tons, and the overall tonnage for 2024 is nearly 40% higher than at this point last year. There's also been more than double the amount of dry bulk coming through Kiefer Terminal. Grain totals for the month of July were also higher, with an increase of nearly 20% over July 2023. Heikkinen says they're optimistic the numbers will remain high throughout the rest of the season, but he adds that it's just anyone's guess.
Typically at this time, we're kind of looking forward at the harvest and the production levels on the prairies, and signs are pointing to a favorable crop this year. There's been a bit of a mixed bag of weather on the prairies, but one of the real benefits is that the prairies got a lot of rain in the spring, which certainly sort of mitigated the drought situation that they had been in, and I think some of the warmer weather certainly would have helped the progress in that regard.
Attendance at the CLE is growing strong as local residents and those from outside the city come to see what the annual fair has to offer. Many people are drawn to the lights and sounds, along with the chance to win huge stuffed animals and other prizes in the carnival games. Holden Dougal has the story.
There are three major things most people think of when they think of the fair, and that's tasty food, thrilling rides, and fun and challenging games. Workers call out to fair attendees, challenging them to try their hands at popping balloons, catching ducks, and whacking moles. We didn't have much luck winning prizes at those games, but we managed to hit a big number in the highest striker game.
Bam! Ooh, 15 will be your best.
And took home a giant inflatable baseball bat. Peter King-Waboose works for Canuck Amusements, and on this day, he's working at the ring toss game.
So this game is actually really popular with the little kids because they see these big stuffed animals, and the game is not really that difficult. It's based on luck. So you just throw a coin, a ring, and if it gets onto the, all you need is one on there, and you get to pick any of these.
I have regulars that come out every year, and last year I want to say we gave away about 15 to 20 of the big prizes.
Yeah.
So once you get the roll of pushing the ball and it stays, I'll show you in a minute how it works.
Yeah.
But once you get it, you get it. It's like we have more kids win than we have the adults.
There are two companies that provide the games for the CLE, Canucks Amusement and Select Amusement. Workers say there's no competition between the two, it's just one big happy family.
Here, I'm a local, so I'm a volunteer. And we appreciate that they let us come up in here and volunteer. It gets me out of the house. My husband's on disability, so, it's a good thing.
Area residents can enjoy the fun games from noon until midnight each day until Sunday. Holden Dougal, TVT News.
Well, he looked like he was enjoying himself. And besides all the rides and games for the younger generation, the CLE is once again bringing back some classic rock groups for the older generation to enjoy. Last night, it was Canadian rock and roll vixen Lee Aaron taking the stage. Hands on, More than 1,000 spectators braved the rainy weather on opening night to see the Metal Queen. The 62-year-old singer moved to Thunder Bay for a short time at the start of her career in 1980, and then went on to record a string of hits on the Canadian rock music charts in the late 80s and early 90s. She played through the rain and performed a mix of classic hits and new songs from her latest albums. Tonight's band is Doug and the Slugs, followed by Sweeney Todd on Friday, Haywire on Saturday night, and a Kiss cover band, Destroyer, on Sunday. Oh, the CLE always is so much fun. And Haley, I feel the weather pretty much did what it needed to do today for those CLE goers.
I have to say I've been fairly impressed. I don't want to blame it on me being hot weather Haley up here this week. Maybe it's just the people at the CLE have been bringing the right energy that we needed. But for the most part, it's been pretty nice. We had a high of 22 today, but with the humidex at the peak, it felt like 24, which is seasonal, which is nice to see. We had the rain stay away for most of the day today as well. We started mainly cloudy in the morning and transitioned to partly cloudy in the afternoon. But there was a little drizzle, as mentioned, for the last performance last night. It started a little after 11, the rain, and continued throughout the night until around 6 a.m. After that, things started to move eastward, and luckily our winds have been from the west-northwest today, so we started with a light morning and then it got a little breezier this afternoon. But if we look at the precipitation we've been seeing, this is starting at 6 a.m. this morning, so you could still see a little lingering showers along the north shore with a greater system more towards the east. And then we have another system out west. So as the day went on, we see the system move continually to the east and kind of linger more northeast, and then the system to the west pushes inwards a little bit and lingers northwest. So that has affected certain areas in our region, especially areas like Pickle Lake. They've seen rain throughout the day today. They're actually in a rainfall warning, and intensity picked up around 3 in the afternoon for them. So it wasn't just light rain, it was more consistent rain as well. And that's why they're only at 11 degrees right now. Areas to the west definitely didn't see a warm up to 22 like we did today. We got quite lucky. Red Lake is at 12 right now, and they've been hovering around that temperature for most of the day. They've seen winds from the north as well, which have been more gusty, around 40 kilometers an hour at certain times. So definitely not a fun fair or picnic kind of day today for them. Areas like Kenora and Sioux Lookout saw occasional breaks in the showers, but light rain as well. Some drizzle in Dryden and light showers in Fort Frances, which continue at this hour. They're at 15 though, a little bit warmer. And then areas along the North Shore saw on and off cloud coverage and sporadic drizzles, but Nipigon's quite lucky right now. They're at 23. Armstrong has seen some showers as expected, but it was more cloudy, then misty, then light drizzle. So not that heavy shower like they were expecting, but they're still under a rainfall warning as well, as they're going to see more showers continue. There's also weather statements for Greenstone, Nipigon, and Marathon, so don't let that little peak of sun deceive you. Greenstone is expected to see some showers. And areas down in Wawa and Sault Ste. Marie, they've had on and off rain as well, but they're now just mostly cloudy. But for tonight in Thunder Bay, we're going to drop down to 12 degrees. We're going to be mainly cloudy. We have a 40% chance of showers at this hour, continuing into the later evening. Overnight, that jumps back up to an 80%, very similar to what we saw last night. And there is a risk of thunderstorm once again. So like I mentioned, fairly similar to last night, a little bit cooler. But I do have some good news leading into the weekend, so I'll give you those details later.
Perfect. I'm excited for that. Thank you so much, Haley. Well, when we come back, Global Affairs Canada is evacuating children of Canadian diplomats from Israel as the country continues to exchange gunfire between the border with Lebanon. We'll have more on that as your Thursday News Hour continues.
Supposed to be going to the concert tonight, so it gives me a lot of peace knowing that I'm no longer going to be there and these men are in custody.